All right. Welcome back to Blackout TV, where we do nothing but the truth and we interview those who are doing positive stuff. But before we get started, we need to pay some bills. We like to thank our sponsor, Connie, from Connie Specialty Cakes and Desserts, where all her desserts is very delicious, very homemade, everything. Nothing is out of a box. Her cake pops are the dab for her. Her homemade peanut brittle is the best you'll ever taste in your life. She also added a whole lot of new stuff to the menu. She's down at the Dayton Mall every first weekend of every month. Come down and see her. You might see her at a lot of venues. That's right, Connie Specialty Cakes and Desserts, where everything you have ever wanted in a dessert is right there for you. She is on Facebook. She is on Instagram. Look her up, Connie Specialty Cakes and Desserts. All right, now that we paid the bills, let's get back. Let's get back to the former #1 ranked in the world heavyweight, Eddie Chambers. Let's give it up, y'all. All right. Ed, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Well, to tell you the truth, we are very excited about interviewing you, my man.
Me?
Yeah,
Just little old me? Oh,
because,
man.
well, I mean, we need the viewers who are the amateur fighters who are out here trying to go pro, but we're trying to make sure that these guys have the correct understanding of what they're doing. And for one, what are they looking for to get out of all this? Because, you can get stared down the wrong path and just be treated like a punching bag, or you can learn the game and avoid all that foolishness. So since it's the first time you're here, how about we get into the beginning of your story? Let's go all the way back as far as your childhood, back when, what put that animal inside you like that?
Well, short answer. Well, there's no short answer in this, but it was my dad, man. You know what I mean? He started boxing, I think, sometime in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s. And it's funny enough, though he was fighting and learned to fight, he learned from a few different guys, Lee Moore, John Osteen, were two of the guys he trained with coming up. And he learned obviously a great deal from them because he turned out to be a pretty damn good trainer himself. With even during his career, he had good young, talent that he was training, and even on up to when I started fighting, and a lot of the family members of mine would also be fighting, and they all were pretty technically sound, and I think it's a lot to do with what the information he had and how he come up with his own system of how to bring fighters along technically. And the desire
was your dad like, was he was he like a contender back in his day?
He never turned professional. Never turned professional. He he fought Ray Leonard in the amateurs. He's had many run.
You said Ray Leonard?
Yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, yeah. He took a little bit of a beating, but he went the distance with him. And back then they didn't wear headgear, so you know what that's like. That means he fought with Sugar Ray Leonard when back in the day when with no headgear on. So imagine. But yeah, he got he had that. He also fought different guys. He had run-ins with different guys by the name, like even another one by the name of Boo Boo Mancini, who was around his way. He didn't actually fight him, but he had an opportunity, I think, to fight him. But I don't know, something had come up and caused it to not actually take place. But I think he was telling me many, and I talked to me when he told me about maybe 150 amateur fights is probably what he had back then. And back then they fought constantly. They were fighting all the time, 2-3 times a week sometime. Even in the pros they were fighting, multiple times in a month. So it's like it's a different time. than now, and even in
Right.
the recent history. So, you know, his level of experience in the amateurs was that of a pro. Like he spent so much time around guys who were actually pros. He sparred with pros, and he got a lot of information on the way up. And
And he taught all that to you.
shit, a lot of it, man. A lot of it to me and my brothers and
When did y'all get
some of the other
started?
fighters. We
How
got
old
started.
were you?
I was actually, I remember my daddy got me remember my first mouthpiece when I was 6, but I didn't do anything then. It was just so crazy to me because I was so enamored with that. Like, oh, it's a mouthpiece. I see the little white mouthpiece. Like, oh, I like those. I just want to play. I'm a 6-year-old kid. What do I know? 5, 6 years old. So I just having fun playing with it. And he would be in the gym training guys or sparring, and I really didn't know. The one time I remember him sparring, he was getting some work from one of the guys from Pittsburgh, who you know became a decent pro at one point. His name was Al Williams, and my dad had come back. It was the first time he sparred in probably about 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Al was giving him the business, and I was watching him, and I'm sitting there like, you know, wishing my dad would be doing better, but you
Right.
know. Now
Right.
I know what that's like, you know what I'm saying? Now, you know, when you going back in one of them young tigers, you know what I mean, beating you down.
Yeah.
But and he refused to wear headgear. I remember they was telling him, "Oh man, just throw the headgear on, Butch. Put the headgear on." And he was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good. Like you should put the headgear on, Pop. You should have put that headgear on." But but anyway, but and then but after that, you know, different times he stuck to the training part. He didn't think about coming, you know, actually getting back into the actual fighting. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he was older. He was probably in his 40s at the time. So that, or at least close to it. So, but we got involved when I really started learning. I got all my equipment, and you know, this is back when ringside was popular. I remember seeing my gloves and I had my
Mm-hmm.
headgear, had all that stuff. My dad really wanted me to fight, and I was about 8, 9 years old, and I remember us in the house, and he was teaching me the basics. Even at 9 years old, I learned pretty much the basics. I understood exactly what it was, and he showed me a lot of little things, and we would be in the house not having slugfest or nothing because like what could I do with him? I couldn't do nothing when I was 9 years old. But we'd be in the house, like you know about this, Tony. We'd be in there doing drills in the house. And I'm talking about with my dad, a grown man, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
only a kid with all that experience. We'd be doing these drills. And he'd be throwing heavy shots at me, and I'd be catching them and catching the jab and throwing the jab. And I'm like, man, and I'm sitting in there like, how the hell, how am I going to do with an actual fighter? Like thinking that it would be harder than
Mm-hmm.
my dad, which I was obviously mistaken, but I would
Mm-hmm.
be in there dealing with him and working with him, and I learned a lot. But for some reason, I think, you know, we fell more on hard times, and he couldn't spend as much time teaching me in the house, and so
Right.
we you know, he had to work, he had to do so much more things, and so I stopped boxing up to that point, and I didn't really return to it until I was going into high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going into high school is when I really started to compete. I remember I was like 13 going on 14, and I had my first amateur fight when I was 14. First day in the gym, 13, got in the gym, sparred first day. You know what I mean? And I had the previous experience, just kind of knowing
Right.
what, you know. But the first day though, like he told me in there in the first day. But I mean, what was I going to tell my dad? Nah, man, I don't want to spar. Nah, I was getting in there sparring. So
Well, you
I
pretty
got in there.
much didn't have no choice with a dad who was in fighting himself.
Facts,
You
and it
didn't have no
was,
choice.
yeah, I had no choice.
Well,
So then we
here's the
go ahead.
thing with that though. You started in at 13, 14, but you
Mm-hmm.
had almost 100 amateur fights.
Yeah, yeah. I turned pro at 18. Yeah,
So,
I was
damn,
fighting.
you
I was
must have
fighting a
been.
lot.
What was you must have been fighting like twice a week or three
At
times
one
a month.
at one point, we were fighting every Wednesday. There was a spot in, yes, we fighting every Wednesday. Fights every
Dang.
Wednesday. Yeah, and it was like a period of, I want to say, like, you know, months on end that would go on. It was like you know how you spar and you got your days of sparring or whatever. Well, at that time it was like, okay, well we got the it was in Greensburg. It was a spot in Greensburg we would go to, you know, and we would fight every Wednesday. And I remember that. I'm like, and I remember one week. No bullshit. I fought 4 times. 4 times in a week. And none of them were, and one of them, only one of the fights were in a tournament. It was crazy.
God.
Everything else was shows. Yeah. So, and see, this is the thing. We were broke. We didn't have no money. We were poor people at the time. And every opportunity my dad had to take me to a fight, be it in Cleveland, be it in Kentucky, be it, in West Virginia, what I mean, even Philly if we could. And Philly was a little far at the time, when you think about it, and trying to travel all the way down there with no money. And I remember times we'd be driving back and from these fights and stuff like that. Sometimes we had fights, sometimes we wouldn't, but most time we would. Most time we would, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we ain't had no money. We all hungry, me, Steve, and Adrian, Ricky, different dudes, all of my cousins, and then other people. And one of the guys, John, was with us, and we went stopped at a Burger King, and we was trying to, because we got the expense money, so we trying to figure out, like, all right, we got this $25. How are we gonna make this stretch for all of us? Like, we all got to get like one burger or two.
Right.
Back then, the prices were a little more, a little better, but
back
it was just
the dollar
like
menu was out.
when it was actually $1. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it was crazy. And then I remember my dad being tired, and I was driving back, falling asleep at the wheel, and guys waking him up, like, wake him up, man. We don't want to crash. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Yeah, this is the old days. This is taking it back, like 13, 14, 15 years old. You know what I mean? And just going through that. It's either people just don't understand the journey of a professional athlete, where you go, where you start from, and how the gradual process, just goes and goes and goes. And all of a sudden, boom, now you're at this high level. It's like, well, he came out of nowhere. Nah. You just didn't know him before he was there. But he did not come out of nowhere.
Well, what city and high school are you from?
I'm I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. High school I went to was Westinghouse High. Graduated Westinghouse.
In Homewood?
In Homewood, yeah.
So you're Homewood native.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I used to live in Lincoln, Limington area, but basically all of that, we consider that Homewood, Lincoln.
Right.
All those little spots. Yeah. I grew up there. I spent the majority of my young life, or my adolescent years there. You know what I mean? So it was like, walking to Westinghouse through Lincoln, and it wasn't, at the time you don't think about it. You're a kid, you don't know how dangerous life is, things that are going on around you really don't pay attention to. You don't realize how lucky you are to make it out of there alive. You know what I'm saying? And truth be told, when I look at where I live now compared to where I lived then, now it might have looked pretty in certain places if you think about it. Like, I don't really remember it looking bad around there. Like, it was a clean. Pittsburgh is generally a nice area, a nice city to be in. But
back then it was.
Yeah, I don't know about now. Yeah, I ain't been there in years where I spent, a lot of time.
Now.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It was a beautiful city back in the day. I don't know about now.
Did you used to cut through the football field to go home? Like,
I didn't go through the football.
Way?
I would come out the front, and I went down on Mertland. I just keep going straight out. But there was a little cut that I would take, and me and the guys would take up through like a little path, and it would take us right to Grotto. And we would go Grotto all the way, and we would take Grotto all the way up to Leamington. Yeah, you see what I mean? Yeah, you know what it is. So it was like a whole lot of little like Lincoln Homewood rivalries going on. You know what I mean? With football, but also with the hands too. They'd be fighting this shit sometimes. Right. I done witnessed a couple of them, and then when I started fighting, I started watching them. I'm like, man, these dudes can't fight. I ain't want to be. You know what I mean? Like, these dudes don't really know how to fight, but I was like, whatever, let them enjoy themselves.
Let me ask you something very important for the young viewers. For my young viewers who are out there amateur fighting right now. When you was an active amateur fighter and you was in high school, was it, how hard is it? And this is with everybody knowing you fighting, right? Or is this
for the most part? Yeah. So, I mean, there was kind of
people trying you.
At first, they kind of say little things, do little things, but I'm not the fighting type. I know that makes no sense, right? But I'm not the aggressive, like walk around with my heart on my sleeve type attitude, like always want to show what I can do. I was always real, and I always loved playing ball. So I'd be in high school, I'd be playing basketball and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it never really got to that point. I mean, of course, there would be guys that would say shit, would try to say little things or whatever, and you just let it go. You know what I mean? And there would be a period of things where people would say, but after there was one guy, I remember he used to lift over at Weight Masters. You know Weight Masters,
Yeah.
you know it well. He used to lift at Weight Masters, but he went to my school. He was upperclassman. He was like 11th, 12th grade. I think I was in like 9th or 10th. And I would come into and I would go into the gym, and I seen him in there, and we never really spoke. I mean, he's upperclassman. He don't really know me. I'm a young kid. I'm quiet as hell in high school, especially in Westinghouse. You hear all of the stories about what goes down at Westinghouse, so I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna keep to myself. And he came in there and was watching, and just so happened we had to be sparring that day, and I had one of my guys. I lit him up, like I was lighting him up, and this is back then, but I lit him up pretty bad. And he's in there, man. He's like, yo, man, I ain't know you a bad boy. I ain't even know you was like that, man. I ain't even know you box and shit. Man, I seen you in school, man. I would have never thought that you was in boxing. And he's like, oh, man, that's crazy, man. When we go to school, man, I'm telling everybody, goddamn it. And I was like, I mean, he's like, why didn't you ever say anything about what you do? It's like, there was one time there was an announcement in school that, and I told him that they said something. But I was like, for the most part, I don't want I didn't say it like this, but I didn't want the bullseye on my back. You know what I mean? And then I didn't even want the notoriety. I know it sounds ridiculous, like most people want, but I was kind of like shying away from that. I didn't want to be motherfuckers paying attention to me, really. I just wanted to kind of be in the cut. You know what I mean? Even with the girls, it was like, I didn't even really, you know what I mean? There might have been girls that liked me or whatever, and there was different ones that come up to me and say little stuff and try to get, but I just didn't want the notoriety. I just kind of wanted to be in the cut.
Well, sometimes people knowing what you are is a bad thing.
Exactly.
Because you back in them days, Homewood was very aggressive as far as
facts.
Like if everybody in that school would have known what you do, right? You went in tournaments, you went in regionals and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden somebody would be like, "Man, I bet I can take him."
That's a fact.
See what I'm saying? So now
that is a fact.
You're risking your education because you have to control yourself, for one. For two, if you do fight that person and you've been winning all these tournaments and regional, can you actually go to jail for something like that?
As an amateur, probably not. You know what I mean? As an amateur,
you're a trained fighter, right?
Right. But as an amateur, nah. But as a professional, they can look at it as a simple assault. They can use it with the jury if it goes if there's litigation. They can say, oh well, we know he fights professionally and he knows how to hurt and that's his business and this was just unfair to my client, all that kind of crap. Yeah, they can do that, but theoretically there's no, and there's no licensing of the hands when you turn pro. It's just you get your pro license and it's just a way of trying to keep control. You know what I mean? You put these stories out, but the reality of it is if you physically if you're a fighter, there's no doubt about it, you are a weapon of any kind. If you're a fighter in MMA, if you're a fighter, if you're a grappler, whatever you do, and you know how to take, like beat a guy down in any particular way, you are a weapon. So, in my opinion, yes, as a fighter, you should do everything you possibly can to stay away from actually using your art, because at the end of the day, somebody's going to get hurt, and most likely, obviously, is going to be the other guy. And then what you're going to be doing, sitting behind a cell for the rest of your life, trying to tell people like it wasn't my fault. But most cases when you know what you know, then people don't want to hear it, especially with boxers, because the only way we really can do what we got to do to, let's say, incapacitate a guy or get him away from hurting you is by actually hurting them. And that's the only thing. Physical trauma, that's what we do. And if the only way you can avoid that is obviously by walking away. and sometimes you feel like a punk when you do it. So like, you know what I mean? I've dealt with that before.
Now, going through the transition of being an amateur, a beautiful amateur fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to deal with the fact of graduating high school without getting into a bunch of foolishness.
Mm.
How did your, well, we know how your dad felt about it as far as him training you. He trained you to be responsible.
Facts.
But how did your Rays feel about you know, what you was doing as far as boxing and in school? Like, was her focus more on you being successful in boxing, or was it her focus more on you just graduating high school safely and
Well,
not get caught up?
my Rays. I ain't heard that in a long time. That's crazy.
For
That's
those out there,
yo.
for those out there who don't know, Pittsburgh slang is Rays means your mom. So we're asking Fast Eddie about his mom. So
Well, see, that's I heard that in a minute. That's crazy, but I love hearing it because it really brings me back. It makes me feel like, yo, I gotta come back to the city, man, a lot more often, man. I just got to do it. But well, the funny part is, in most cases, you hear of single parent households is generally the mother that is raising, the kids. That's why it's called the raise. You know what I mean?
right.
Generally. But in this case, my raise was my dad because he was their single parent. My mom was real young when I was born. She was about 19, which honestly, in most cases, that's not real young. But in her case, and in some cases at that time, she was young, especially to be by herself after it and not wanting to continue to be in a relationship. Even if she was 20, 21 when it happened, right? She's still young. She wanted to live. And, you know, although she was around. I would go, different times to, my grandparents' house where she would be sometime. When she had her own place, I would go hang out there but it wasn't constant. There was a period of, I think, like 6 years, 7 years where I didn't see her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If at all. So she knew what she was doing in the sense she knew my dad was much older, much more stable, had a business, had a lot of money at one point, and she knew that it was a good idea for me to be there. She was too young. She was in the streets. She's a kid. She was a kid. She didn't, you know
Well,
what I
your
mean?
dad did a wonderful job, I tell you that.
Appreciate that, and I know you would too. And the fact is, but obviously she was supportive when
Mm-hmm.
she did realize what was happening. And then once I really reconnected with her and spent more time, and got to see my other little brother who was a baby at the time coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that we talked about and that we did, and we like I said, we got to know each other well. And she's really, really supportive with the boxing thing. And I remember she came to the championship fight I had, and she flipped out at the end. But it was just, when you see something like that as a parent, it just throws you for a loop. You don't know what to do.
Right,
She was
right.
freaking out, but she's been supportive over these last years, and got to give her that grandkid that she so desperately wants. And now obviously that my father's no longer here, it's unfortunate I wasn't able to do that when he was here. But
Whoa. You lost your dad passed?
yeah, he passed in
When?
2021. 2021 around. It's funny enough, it was like, I want to say around, like, not too long before my birthday. So that's a hell of a present, right?
Uh, this is my first time.
You didn't even know. Yeah, so that
This is my
that's
first time hearing this. So, uh, uh,
yeah, that's
we
crazy,
we
ain't it?
uh we uh we gotta let's take a let's take a moment for him, because
Yeah,
he meant a lot to me. He was like a father figure to me. When nobody cared, and
yeah,
and he took me under his wing and got me away from the foolishness of the Wilkinsburg gym, and you know what I'm
yeah.
saying. And he really showed me, that there's other stuff that I could be doing. So yeah, let's just take a moment of silence for him. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, new news comes, even though it's not new. You know, now it's old news, but yeah, it's what happens when you don't talk to somebody in a long time, man. Is
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
miss time, and you don't get a chance to spend, time. And it's funny because honestly, man, those last few years, man, I really haven't. I wasn't able to see him much. He was in Florida. Health started deteriorating. He had he had a couple mini strokes that he had, and it just destroyed his ability to communicate. Then he gets, in these different hospitals and different stuff, and it just got crazy. And what I tried to do is at the end, I tried to develop the funds to get him to a place close by me and bring him
Mm-hmm.
back up this way where he's comfortable being. And I know why he moved to Florida. He wanted to get away from this cold, which I understand.
Yeah.
But where he's from and where he earned everything, all his stripes, and where he lived when he was a kid and up to an adult was Pittsburgh, and then in Philly and stuff like that was as we training so best parts of his life were here. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? There was more struggle down there than anything when he went down there. So I was thinking of bringing him here, and at least he finishes out the rest of his years here. But it just never happened. By the time we decided to try to make that move, it was too late.
Right.
Unfortunate, but that's the way life goes sometimes. And trust me, I had to make peace with it. That's a man that for 25 years of my life, I spent almost every single waking moment around. And when I tell you, there's nobody that knew me better. There's nobody that I knew better than him. Even in the years I've been with my wife for 10 years, I knew that man inside and out.
Well,
Trust
I
me.
mean, he was your trainer. So I
He,
mean, he's
he was
watching your
everything.
right. He's watching your food intake. He's watching
Yeah, he's watching
everything.
everything.
You know what I mean? And
He's watching
that's what I
everything.
did with my son.
That's right.
But what I come to now, with your dad being your trainer like that and being your dad,
Mm-hmm.
do you think he was pushing you into the ring more based off the fact that he was trying to live his dream through you? Because there was times when me and you used to talk where it kind of felt like you didn't really want to do it no more. You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
fact.
You remember we used to have those talks in
Yeah,
the gym.
that's a fact.
Man,
Oh
you
my
used to
God.
sit down and you used to look at me and I used to be like, "You all right, man?" You used to be like, "I really don't want to do this no more." You know what I mean? And I never understood it then.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, as far as I was concerned, man, you the next Muhammad Ali. I used to call you that all the time.
Yeah.
And this was before you turned pro.
Yeah. 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 I wish I'd have grew. I wish I got to be 6'3". That would have been nice, but okay. I didn't get that much height.
But I mean, you've come a long way. You've come a long way. And so you went from high school and you won the regionals, right?
Yeah. I won. Yeah.
When you won regional, did you think, because you was undefeated at that point, right? Because you have never lost.
In the amateurs, let me see. The first 10 fights I had, this is crazy. It was early. The first 10 fights I had was obviously I was undefeated up to that point. And then I had this string of fights, man, where it was like you get see, this is the thing about the amateurs, and you know this. You can beat the hell out of a guy, but if you're in the wrong town, you're losing. And that's happened to me so many times as an amateur. Like, I don't even really know what my record was, but I know I had obviously a lot more wins than I had losses, but I mean, way more. But when you think about the amount of times this is the thing. We didn't have a lot of money, so going to tournaments in different states and stuff like that all the time wasn't beneficial for us, because we didn't have the funds.
Right.
So sometimes what we would do, we just go for a show. We go fight this guy at a fight show in Cleveland, or go to Kentucky, or or go to Steubenville, Ohio, or go to West Virginia, or go to, maybe not DC or anything like that, but somewhere close by. And it would be like, all right, we go there. And each time, remember, each time you fight in these places, not every time. Now, you will win sometime because, it's just the law of averages. You're going to get a decision every now and again. But shit, a lot of the time, you're going to get bad decisions, man. You beat the hell out of a guy, almost beat him to death, and you still lose a decision. You know what I mean? Oh, it was supposed like one time I fought Devin Vargas. I fought him in Johnstown. I think it was Johnstown. No, Youngstown. I'm sorry, Youngstown.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. Fought him in Youngstown, right? Go up there. At this time, they had just implemented the four round 2-minute thing, which was cool. And we're in the ring fighting. First 2 rounds he won. Third round I beat him down. And so we put the store in for the 4th round. Think we got another round. Oh no, fight's over. Like what? My dad like what? Fight's over. Supposed to be 4 rounds, ain't it? Nah, man. It's only 3. We only do 3. Oh, I see how this is. What they do? Give him the decision. We walk out. And it's like, so this is what. See, so that kind of shit right there, that happens, and it happens all the time in the amateurs. Not necessarily a rule change or something like that, but just decisions. You're not gonna get a decision. You remember Brian Minto?
Brian Minto, the name
sounds from Butler. He fought Chris Areola. He fought a few guys as a pro.
Yeah, I remember. I know you talking. I don't know him, but I know you.
You know of him, right? Fought him as an amateur up in his area in Butler, right at the Butler Cubs gym, right? I knocked him out the ring. The motherfucker's going out the ring. I caught him, pulling back in. Obviously, I beat him. I was beating him down. What you think they do? Gave him the motherfucking decision. Yeah, bruh. And they laugh at me to this day because of it. Steve and all of them laugh at me to this day. Like, because what I said when I went into the locker room, yo, man, I'm knocking motherfuckers' heads off now. After that. But it's like, and that was that stretch of fights where I had 5 fights in a week or 4 fights in a week. And I got, and not only, I think I lost that one, then I fought, I want to say Jim Northey on Wednesday. That was that Wednesday card the cards we was talking about. On Thursday, I forget. I don't remember. I think it was in the tournament. I fought this kid Isaiah Hyman, and then I think I had one more fight. I can't remember what the other fight was at that time. But you can't remember all these damn things. And the funny thing is, I think I won. I was like 1-3 or 1-4 that week, or some shit, or 1-3. I think that week, and 3 of them were decisions that. All 3 of the losses were decisions that weren't popular. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. Boxing and the amateur level is even more corrupt.
So what should the young guys out here what can they learn from that? Like from what you're saying? What good advice do you have for them?
Look, simply put, boxing the amateurs is a training ground. Use it for a training ground. I'm not saying don't get hyped up.
Don't worry about the records and the stats.
Think about who you're facing, right? It's like my man, we playing fight night and all that, right? And my man got like how many losses? He don't even know, but he got a lot more. He got more wins, but he got a lot of losses. And he looks at it, well, like when I fight a great fighter or a good guy who's ranked high, you really focusing on winning, right? You try to make it. You try to savor that opportunity, right? Well, it's the same thing with the amateur game. It's like if you're in there and you're fighting, right? And you know that you are in a situation where you're not going to be trying. I mean, even if you go to the Olympics, it doesn't matter. You can have a terrible record and still win the Olympic. If you're going to go to the Olympic, you can still make it. It's all about wins at the time that you need them. You understand what I'm saying? Use the amateurs as a training ground. Stop focusing so much on how your record looks and, not fighting this guy because of this and that. Just use it as a training ground. I would, if anybody would ask me like, yo, man, I'm thinking about, turning pro. I'm like, yo, get you a tournament with some of the highest level competition that you got around you as an amateur. See where you go, see how you do. If you win the tournament, that's great. But my thing is set your sights high for professional, but try to learn as much as you possibly can. Get comfortable, get acquainted with a lot of the competition that you're going to have at high level amateur, because a lot of those guys are going to be the high level pros that you're going to run into. So at least you'll understand what it is you're facing. And then also when you think of tournaments too, think about how difficult boxing tournaments are. Think about how many different styles you're going to deal with within the course of a week. We're talking about 5 days. Because once you fight once, you got to fight every day unless somebody pulls out the tournament. So that means you could be fighting a boxer this one day, a brawler the next day. You could fight a little cutesy defensive dude who won't throw punches, but in certain situations the next day trying to score. You could fight a literal killer to knock you out with one punch, even in the amateurs, like Devera Williamson back in the day. Like a dude like that. You can fight him and be for the championship. And that's just how it goes. You can fight killers. You got to fight killers every day. And each one of them pose a different problem. And this is why guys who have high amateur, like big amateur backgrounds are the best fighters. Why? Because they're prepared to adapt on command. You understand?
So what you're saying is, as an amateur, stop letting your trainer set you, because trainers will set you up in the amateurs with like have you 20-0, but he
what does that
knew
mean?
those 20 fights was fights he knew you could win.
Right.
He didn't really put you with nobody, so now your head is super big and you swole and you thinking I can beat anybody, until he actually put you in there
with a real killer
who really know the business, and he's focused on moving forward to the pros. But your mind's not focused on moving to the pros because you allowed your trainer to put you in with a bunch of sheep when he should have put you in with a bunch of wolves.
That's a fact. That's a fact. See, what I want the kids, I want the youngsters to understand that, there's nothing good about being a real front runner. It's nice being able to be in control and always winning if that's what you're really shooting for. But the reality of it is whenever you're finally put in front of it in a situation where it's going to be some adversity, you're going to be shocked and you're not going to know how to respond to it. Adversity turns people, it's like pressure makes diamonds, right? Anything that is easy, trust me, anything that is super duper easy for you is not something that you want, at least for a long-term situation. Like, think about this. Think about food. Everything that tastes good and is easy to get. Go to McDonald's every day. You can go to. Is that good for you? Hell no. The things that you actually have to think about, like, man, I got to eat this shit. A lot of that stuff is good for you. We're programmed in a way to think that, certain things that you put in your body is meant to be there, and it's not. Now, when you become a high-level athlete or you want to become a high-level athlete, you got to start thinking about what you put in your body. And just like anything else, anything that is easy, anything that is so accessible, anything that is cheap is not necessarily what you want. And the same thing goes into the sport. If it's easy, if it doesn't provide any real value necessarily, why are you messing with it? It's easy. It's not it's everything. Things in life are supposed to be hard, but give the biggest reward. When you train hard, what happens? You get the biggest reward, don't you?
Yeah.
Right? So if you go and you train once and you hit the bag a little bit, you bullshitting in there, you spar a little bit, and then you spar with a guy that can't really fight. Yeah, but you feel good because you beat him up. Oh, yeah. But then when you get in the ring and you can fight this dude, he might not even be that great. But because he put more effort into you into it, because he had to go through some hardships, he becomes the diamond in the rough in that situation, not you. So you got to think, anything that's easy, especially as a man, got to be very leery about how much you accept it. Do the shit for yourself. Do it for yourself. Work hard. You'll get the biggest benefits. It's like, look, most of the people we see out with these nice cars and all this stuff, they had to work their ass off to get that, right?
Right.
Do you think they was sitting on their ass? And some people, don't get me wrong, some people were lucky to hit the lottery, different things like that happen. It just happens. Sometimes you get lucky, right? But most of these people you see out here with these Bentleys and these crazy looking cars and crazy houses and all that had to sell it seemed like they sell their soul to what they're doing. They had to work their ass completely off, just like I did as a fighter. three times a day training, sparring twice a day. You saw it. I become you know what I mean, and all these different trials that I've had to go through, fighting guys who were bigger than me for my entire career, even as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Look what it has done. It has
Well,
turned me into a diamond.
it has definitely paid off.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I could be doing better, but you know, we ain't complaining.
Let's get into the let's get down to the good stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Let's get down to the fact that when you turn pro, was you nervous?
Was I?
I mean, like your first. Well, of course you was nervous, you know, turning pro. But I'm saying as far as, like let's move a little forward past that. Like let's say your first 10 fights into it before you got on ESPN, before you got that ESPN deal, when you started fighting on ESPN. When you got the word that you would be fighting on ESPN, how'd you feel?
It was like I felt like I could win. Obviously, you know, I got my dad right there. I can't have that. You know what I mean? That I'm nervous type thing. I just had to expect it. You know, and the first ESPN one I had was against Ross Purity, who had fought the eventual heavyweight champ and beat him, Vladimir Klitschko.
That fight.
Yeah, that was the first one. And I'm sitting there thinking like, and this is heavyweight. So it's like at the time I'm still thinking power. These guys gonna be strong. They're gonna hit hard and all this and that. And can I take it? And you don't think about really yourself and what you're bringing to the table. You're just hoping that you're able. Well, this is how I was. You're just hoping that you're able to deal with what they bring in, because I always wanted the fights to feel like sparring, because I always had so much success and I was so comfortable in sparring. It was so easy to me. I can do what I want, kind of, in most situations, right? So when I got in the ring, and this is back in the day when they didn't have all these the internet crazy like it is now. This is back in like 05 or something like that. 04, 05, 06, something like that. So I'm getting in the ring and I'm fighting Ross Purity. Now I see him on the other side of the ring, and they had us in there early, and we were standing in there, which seemed to me like about an hour. Wasn't that long. It was probably more like about 5 minutes, but it seemed like we were standing there for an hour. And all these wires all over the ring. And I'm looking like, what the fuck? Like, you literally got to be careful where you step in. They got cameras everywhere. And it's almost like they're like pre-recording stuff. And I'm just like, it's all coming at me so fast. I don't know what the hell is going on. And I'm already nervous as hell. I remember being in the back room, getting ready to come out. And then when they finally had me come out and all that. See, back then, there was no entrances. You know what I mean? When you talk about ESPN is concerned at that time. You know, especially if you wasn't the main event. It wasn't nothing special. You would just come in and it's like, yo, you get in the TV spot, you fight. And so they put me on, and I'm standing across, like I said, I see all the wires, and I'm like, damn, this is a big, he's about 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", big, strong looking dude, but older. He's still young enough to fight. He's probably in like mid-30s at the time. And I'm like, damn, man, you know, what can I do with this guy? Now I got skills that he could only dream of having, but in my mind, I'm just thinking, first TV gig, and what am I going to do? Am I going to get knocked out?
What world is looking.
Yeah, everybody's watching. What if he hits me, man, and he's hard? He knocked out Vladimir Klitschko. God damn. Blah, blah.
Right.
You know, all these things go through your mind. But once you get into the ring, and, you know, even though I'm in there and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, fuck it, I'm here, man. I'm here now. You know what I mean? There ain't nothing I can do about it. You know, let's just get it in. So I get in there, and I remember, you know, moving around with him with the jabs, hitting him with everything. But him defending it, but still landing a lot. But he's a real durable dude. Like, he's extremely durable. I don't think he's ever been stopped. He might have been stopped like once or twice. I can't remember, like maybe once. And this time I'm thinking, would it be nice to be able to stop this dude? But I knew that shit wasn't happening, especially me, you know, little guy.
Right.
But I was in there, and my thing was, I don't want to get caught with nothing that serious, right? And I was beating him for like, I remember, as the fight was progressing, beating him every round. It wasn't really nothing, could be said about him. And then I remember there was a time he threw a punch in there. And if you watch the broadcast, you would see that they start going kind of crazy. Like, oh, he caught him with a great shot. But when he hit me with the shot, I literally didn't feel anything. Didn't hurt me, didn't buzz me, nothing. I just remember my head going back. And I'm thinking, like I said, I had been nervous the entire time. I don't want this dude knocking me out, man. Nothing. And I'm not saying he couldn't punch, but it was just like, damn. I didn't think I could take that shit.
Right.
I thought it was going to be a killer. I thought I was going to be dead after that shot. And then I'm like, so then I start walking him down. Yeah. I start trying to, you know what I mean? He was kind of like coming at me for most of the fight. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be cool in here. I didn't, and even then, and this is when I went to Philly, and even then, I still always, you still worry, but at that point, I started to have a little more confidence in being able to deal with what the big heavyweights brought to me. And in that,
you fought a lot of big heavyweights.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You fought a lot of big heavyweights.
A lot of big heavyweights. Yes, yeah. It's being 6'1" and 210. You know what I mean? Is not enough in that division, especially now.
You fought at what, 210, right? 215?
About 210, between 215 and 210 for the majority, and then there would be periodically I would be up a little higher or a little lower. You know what I mean?
Now you dropped down in weight to cruiserweight.
Yeah.
To fight
Machuna, yeah. Yeah. I know. Well, I want to give you a little.
Did you regret that?
I 100% regretted not only taking the fight, but I regret it wasn't the weight loss because there was hardly any weight loss. There was only 200 pounds I had to get down to. It was the preparation I really regretted, and I regret it. I took the fight.
You weighed in at 190.
190, yeah, 197, 196, something like that. Something crazy like that.
You was pretty light.
Yeah. But I didn't have to struggle to do it either. I got on the scale with my clothes on. I was good. I mean, I had like maybe shorts or something on and no shirt, but I was good. Like I didn't even worry about the weight. It was the preparation. Like I did, we trained, we hit the bags, we did this, we sparred, but we were sparring with people who nothing like the guy I was fighting. I sparred one southpaw the entire time. Everybody else was like converting to southpaw, and they were big heavyweights. The kid that I was fighting was 5'8", 199 pounds.
And he was pretty.
Well,
he was pretty
sharp.
Yeah,
he was pretty sharp. He was sharper than me. Why? Because he was preparing for me. He was preparing for someone who was
bigger than him,
a top guy. No, but a top guy.
Well, at that point, when you fought him, I mean, your record was like 30 and was
31,
30,
36
and 3.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you was 36 and 3 when you fought him. Now,
right.
36 and 3 as a professional heavyweight is goddamn amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, you only had 3 losses when you fought him. Now, was that the fight before the Klitschko fight, or was
no? That was after. That was after.
Okay. So that was after.
Yeah, that was after. Yeah, that was good. That was a good bit after. Yeah, that was 3 years after.
Okay, so let's rewind then. Let's rewind the track back some.
Okay.
When you fought Sam Peters, was that after?
That was before. Okay.
Now the Sam Peters fight, I felt like you carried him the whole fight.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that, yeah.
But you pretty much carried him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way I was boxing him, my people at the time were telling me, like, look, man, stay away from that TNT. Don't sit around too long. Don't stay in one spot for too much time. And I'm like, I get it. I'm not going to give him an opportunity. He had very, very bad footwork. No disrespect to him, but his footwork was horrible. And he was such a big puncher, but he had to be set to punch. Now that doesn't, and if you watch the fight, that didn't mean that I
Yeah.
moved all around the ring like that. I just moved just enough to turn him. And what I was doing was I was moving, like I was circling him, but not circling him like on the ropes and running and trying to. No, I don't fight like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'll create space when necessary. But the idea was to keep him turning, keep the jab in his face, keep him busy. Whenever he tried to land something big, not allow him to sit with his hips flat, his feet flat, allow him to dig any shots in. And even at times when I did, it didn't really bother me because at that point he was so worn down. He didn't have a dog in the fight. There was nothing he could do. So it was just like I didn't have to really overcommit with anything. Every once in a while, I would throw a good right hand, catch him with a shot. But see, the thing is, and I see this with a lot of fighters, and they get a little greedy. They get a little greedy in their situation. And I understand it's exciting. It makes it, for with the idea of a possible knockout there. You know what I mean? But look, when you have an opportunity to knock the guy out, what does he have? The same goddamn opportunity. So guess what?
Exactly.
You got to think about what position you're putting yourself in for the enjoyment of people. Don't get me wrong, and that's why we're doing it, so we get paid a good amount. But it's also you got to think about the next one. Are you going to have the ability or the opportunity for the next one? Right? You got to think. So maybe be exciting in the next fight after you get the win here, because that was my biggest win to that date, was to beat the former heavyweight champion of the world, Samuel Peter, to get the opportunity to fight for an eliminator next. And
who was the eliminator?
The eliminator was with Alexander Dimitrenko, 6'8".
That's the guy you fought. Yeah. You had to beat him to fight Klitschko.
Yes, sir. Yep. And
how'd that fight
go? First off, I was the heaviest weight of my career for Sam Peter at that time, but I was still in great shape, trained properly, everything. 224. 224. Something like that. 224. 223 to 24. Didn't like how it looked. I was a little chubby, fat motherfucker on there, and I didn't like it. So when I got back, literally landed the plane, got off the plane running. I went to the gym like that day, started the train, ran, did some different things, changed my diet, really started focusing on that. We got the call and, the contract to fight Alexander Dimitrenko. And I remember watching a video of him fighting. Funny enough, I was watching a video of Alexander Dimitrenko fighting Ross Purity. When I was getting ready to fight Ross Purity, I was watching them two fight so I can kind of get an idea what I was facing with Ross Purity. And now I got a video of Dimitrenko fighting Ross Purity. So I saw what I already knew who he was and how he fought and blah, blah, blah. So, but I got ready for that fight. By the time fight time came, I was 208 pounds, 208, 207. Well, I was 208 I had sweatpants on. I had stuff in my pockets. I was probably more like 206, 205, 206, maybe even lighter. So when I was going there to fight him, I was in peak shape. I knew that I could fight 12 rounds hard, whatever I had to do. Not saying that I couldn't with Peter, but I was better suited in this fight to do that. So with him, dominated from round 1 to round 12. Hurt him several different times. Dropped him once, hurt him with a body shot, and he tried to make it like I did something illegal, which I might have, I don't know. But I hurt him with body shots, and I dropped him in the 10th, and then I almost stopped him in the 12th. You know what I mean? So he was supposed to be the next Klitschko. He was supposed to be the one to beat Vladimir. He was a guarantee. I was a guarantee win for him before we fought. That's why fights aren't fought on paper.
And you proved his ass wrong.
I proved the whole universe wrong. their whole promotional company.
Now we got to get down to the Klitschko fight, and this is the last part of the segment. When you got in there and when you trained for Klitschko, in your head you're training for the man who made Lennox Lewis retire.
One of them. Well, no, that was his brother, but I know what you. I know.
That wasn't Vladimir. No,
Yeah,
Vladimir.
Vitaly beat Lennox. Well, Vitaly lost to Lennox. So
yeah, Vladimir. Actually, that was Vladimir that fought Lennox, and Lennox didn't give him the rematch, right?
Right. No, Vitaly. That's what. But if you'll see,
Oh,
Vitaly was the one.
Okay.
Yeah, Vitaly. Yeah, he's the one who fought him. But yeah, but regardless, he's the one who oh my gosh, he's the one who beat San Peter too, Vladimir.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was, and at that time, he won. I don't know. He had the title for like 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. He was like, and he had 3 of the 4 belts.
Okay, now
had the other one.
Now, when you trained and you got yourself ready, and I gotta say, you looked a lot leaner.
Yeah, I was in shape.
You went in with Klitschko.
No, I was in shape. I was in the best shape I could have been possibly
in your life.
Yeah, I mean, even with Dimitrenko and his different fight up to that point, I was the best shape I was in. I was ready. I was as ready as I could be.
But what happened?
Klitschko happened. No, but you know what? You know what it really was?
No, because it seemed like you went on defense from the 3rd round to the 12th. Yeah. It looked like you went strictly on defense.
Like almost.
Was you hurt?
No, it wasn't that I was on defense. It was that I was trying to figure out a way to get close enough to get my offense off, and had to go through arms. I had to go through certain illegal tactics that were utilized. Not so much the holding, but remember, for that fight, I was about 205. You know, I'm not a big heavy. I wasn't a heavy guy, so the things that he was doing, he would try to lay on you. He would use his left hand to not only measure but push and then throw a punch. He would pull your head down. He would grab your elbow, try to knock it out of place. And he was doing a lot of things that, look, it's a fight at the end of the day.
So that's why you tried to body slam his ass.
Look, I tried to get respect and let him know that this shit wasn't going down like this through this whole fight.
You ain't fitting okay.
Yeah, you're not going. And another.
Yeah, because we was watching that, and everybody was like, "Man, what your boy doing?" I'm like, what is you talking about? Because I was getting a beer out of the kitchen. I come back in, and then they showed the replay.
Yeah.
That's what the fuck is Eddie doing, man? Because you picked him up. I'm like, oh, he finna throw his ass. I'm like, oh, he finna toss his ass. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I said, I always wanted to ask, you know what I mean, like, what the fuck was your corner? I know they had to be on your ass when you went back to the corner. Like, what are you doing?
No, well, you know what happened was one of the great trainers that passed away not too long ago, Nazim Richardson. I remember him telling us stories about different things he's seen in the amateurs and just different fights in general. And he was like, listen, when you got a guy who's that dude is just that tough, he's strong, he got all these different qualities, like sometimes you got to throw something in there that make him question why he's there. And not only just because of that's one thing, but also because he tried to utilize those dirty tactics. So I'm just trying to let him know. First time I picked him up, I put him down. That was a warning. Next time he did that shit, I dumped him. Like, yo, stop pushing my head. Now you ain't gonna do that shit. I'm stronger than you. You know what I mean? I got lower center of gravity. You're gonna get taken up.
So that's
what happened. He was trying to bully me, and he's a big, strong guy. He's 244 pounds. I'm 205. You know what I mean? I'm in there with a guy like that. But there was a certain amount of respect that I earned, but he still was a champion. He understood, listen, when I dumped him, he got up, dusted his gloves off, went right back to work. Nothing changed. And I figured, and you know what me and Nazim talked about back then and what he would tell us all, he was like, sometimes that'll shock the shit out of a guy and scare him. Like, oh, this dude's strong as hell, man. What are you going to do if he hit me? Klitschko, professional. He's like, this is not wrestling. This is boxing. Let me just get back to doing the work that I was doing. He had Emmanuel Stewart in his corner. He had my trainer now, one of my trainers now, Mr. James Ali Bashir, my main man, who's a great trainer, in his corner too. You know what I mean? And they just went back to work. So with me, I'm dealing with that shit. Then he catches me with a good right hand in the second round and stumble me, and I get my shit back quick. But then I'm trying to figure out how to get it back. I'm trying to figure out how to get controlled, and I'm fighting against, I know I can't win a decision. What am I going to do if I'm not dominating this fight? So I'm trying to find ways to get close. I'm trying to find ways to land the punches that I like to land. And remember, I'm not only am I fighting the idea of not being able to win a decision in Germany, but I'm also fighting one of the best fighters in the history of boxing, one of the best heavyweights in the history of boxing. I got to figure out how to deal with that. And I'm overcoming the size difference. And I'm overcoming the lack of preparation and not necessarily preparation physically, but more so mentally, understanding what it is I'm facing and really knowing what it is that I need to do, and having a game plan that is conducive to a victory in a situation like this. What was I really going to do in that situation? Was I really prepared for any of it? No, not really. I thought I was. I physically was. I sparred. I did this. I did that. I put the work in. I ate right. I did everything. But there's still things that were missing. And those things is what made the difference. Also, you know, being a great small man is not going to be able to beat a great big man. You understand what I'm saying? There's always going to be that advantage. We just have to
reach and
not only just not only just the arm reach, just in general, man. It's just when you could. There's always going to be something that he can do physically that is going to put me at a disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I have a team. It's not like we're playing basketball and he's the big and then I got a big over here. I can just beat down your point guard. You know what I mean? But just because you bigger than me, that ain't gonna make a difference here because I got somebody that can deal with you. No, I have to deal with everything. So that means whatever he's bringing to the table, I got to find a way to combat it. And we didn't have enough understanding of what we were facing, and that's why it turned out to be the way it was.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Ed. A lot of people don't get a chance, an opportunity, or even a glimpse of making it.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? To fight the heavyweight champion of the world. You're up there on a level now with Roy Jones Jr. and all them who all had the chance to fight up there and on that level of caliber. You know what I mean? So, one last thing before we let you go, because we got to wind it up. Is there? Well, there's two things. There's two things. One, you're coming out of retirement, right?
Yeah. See what's gonna happen.
Your first fight out of retirement.
Well, the first fight.
Set your sights on.
Well, who I would like to fight is different than who I'm fighting. For one, I mean, obviously, there's guys that I see out there that are, that style matchup, for me or maybe at this point in my career and at this age, should I try to go at them at this time without being fully prepared? No, of course not. I'm not going to do that. But I'm planning to take my time. I don't have a lot of time, but take what time I do have, working my way back into it, and hopefully I don't want to say cash out because that sounds bad. Put myself into position to where I can have a good living after the sport. Because I'm not foolish to think that, I'm going to go back in and have a Bernard Hopkins type career after 40. That's just not, most people can't do that. I turned pro at 18, so I've already had a long ass career. So what I'm saying is I still feel good. I still feel like my body's in a good position. I'm not overdone with things. So I'm looking to just be as successful as I possibly can be at this point. And hopefully, make a good living. If somehow I win a title at this late stage, I mean, shit, I will take it. I will be happy with it. But
no,
not this
right.
Right, you know what I mean? But that's not to say that, I'm necessarily looking for something like that, especially right away. So I'm going to work my way into it, see how I feel. If everything goes right, then we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Okay, and my last thing for you is, what advice do you have for the young amateur fighters who are out there right now thinking about going pro or turning pro or working hard to be pro? I know we're going to have a segment called the outreach segment in January with you and Verquan, the show Kimbra, where we're going to allow 2 youth amateur fighters the opportunity to ask you guys 30 minutes of questions of, as far as the game, what to look for, what not to look for. But what do you have for the youth right now as far as how they should stay focused and how they should stay away from any trouble that might come their way because people know that, you know, that they can fight?
Well,
like, what's the discipline in it?
Well, you got to let boxing be your refuge in a sense. You got to get away from, you know, not everybody lives in a favorable place, and you know, there's tough times everywhere, you know, in certain parts. So, you know, what you got to do is you got to try to use the sport, soak yourself in it, learn as much as you can about it, work as hard as you possibly can, leave no stone unturned, especially in preparation to turn professional. But one thing that a lot of kids, and you know, I don't want to say kids, but a lot of people overlook, especially like the parents that are involved with their young guys that are, you know, deciding to want to become professional athletes. And I'll say, in this particular situation we're talking about boxing, is they overlook the importance of a figure to look out for their career as they're going financially and business wise. You know, not you know, financially and in business. So you have to really know who you're getting in bed with. You understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of people out there that are going to do things or say things to make you feel that they're the best person for the job and looking after your career and making sure they take care of you. People who you might not know, have ever known, but all of a sudden, because they see you're talented and you're capable of maybe, you know, taking their lives to another level, they're going to start to put pressure on you to say, hey, well, I'm your guy. You know what I mean? I'm your guy. Now, what you have to do in that situation is you have to know who they are. You have to learn them. And you also have to put yourself in a position where you're always in control of what they do. Meaning, don't allow them to make you are the boss. So when you turn pro, when a guy signs a contract with you, they're not signing the contract with you. They're not giving you the contract. You should be giving them the contract in a sense. They hand you the contract, they give you their stipulations, right? And they say, okay, this is the stipulations that, you know, we have for our fighters. They say, okay, well, let me take a look at this. I'm gonna take it to my people, take it to somebody who knows. They're gonna look over it and they're gonna make this favorable for both parties, you know. And you always make sure that you know what you're signing. Always make sure that there's gonna be something that is gonna keep you always focused on the sport, not having to necessarily worry about so many other things, and also not having to worry about what they're doing. You know what I mean? You want the contract to say what it is that is going to keep them in line. You understand what I'm saying? Because if they breach the contract, they do something dirty that's not in there, you can always sue, because you can sue them, you can take them to court, you can do whatever you got to do. You can also, it also could be a breach of contract. You can get away from it and get with somebody who will actually be right by you. Just make sure the people, and this is one of the most important things, make sure the people around you, don't get me wrong, we're going to be looking out for themselves. Everybody has to look out for number one. They got to make sure their families are taken care of, but they also have to make sure that you're a priority, because you're a fighter. You're the fighter. You're the one who has to get in there and perform for everyone to do well. So this is why you got to have a solid team around you that understands the importance of who you are and not pressure you into doing things that you may not really feel comfortable doing. You have to be the boss in the situation, and I just wish that I would have had the understanding of that back then when I started, especially when I first turned pro.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. The exclusive, one and only. You heard it here first on Blackout TV. The life story of Eddie Chambers, Fast Eddie Chambers. coming back to fight again. We wish you all the luck, and we hope you get in there and this time bring that belt home.
That would be nice. Appreciate you.
Hey, we love you out here, man, and we can't wait to see you again in February. For everybody out there, you know what to do. You like this interview, you liking the interview with Eddie, you liking everything I've been putting out, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications. I'm your host, Tony Blackout Williams. We'll see you again. Peace.